It's that time of year again, everybody. The NFL season is soon upon us, but more importantly, it's time for my quarterback tiers 2024 edition. I've done this every year since 2021, and it's been a hit. Nobody has ever argued any of my placements. Everybody agrees with everything I say, and it's really just wonderful, is what I would say if I was a liar. In reality, every single year, my quarterback tier list causes a lot of arguments and frustration and a lot of insults being thrown in the comments section, and that's going to continue this year. But I just want you to know that as I watch all of you fight, I'm going to have tears in my eyes. Get it? Tears in my eyes, quarterback tears. Anyway, I have 7 tiers in this video. Rookies, too soon to tell, scrubs, average, above average, elite, and GOAT. The video begins right after this. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings. Hello everyone, with the football season kicking off, it's the perfect time to dive into the action with my partners at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. And right now, all new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $250 in bonus bets, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium, courtesy of DraftKings. That's something we can all celebrate. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code BARRY. The crown is yours. That's $250 in bonus bets instantly and 1 month of NFL Plus Premium after betting just $5. Stay in on the action and use your $250 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. DraftKings is the place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, do not worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code BARRY and bet just $5 on any wager and get $250 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code BARRY only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Tier 7, rookies, Caleb Williams. For the last several years, I literally called it. I called Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears when Justin Fields was crapping his pants, and Bears fans, they got mad at me. They said, "You're just a Justin Fields hater. You don't know anything about football, blah, 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 blah." And I said, you'd be better off tanking for the first overall pick that you got from Carolina so you can get Caleb Williams, because this guy is legit. And guess what? Bears took Caleb Williams first overall, and I expect him to be a Pro Bowler and even an All-Pro very, very soon. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers. Some people might not like him and his quirky ways with his fingernail paintings and shit. I don't really care about that. I care, can the guy play? And this dude can play. He has unbelievable arm talent. The only bugaboo with him is that he can hold on to the ball too long sometimes, but I think the Bears have a good quarterback for the first time in a very long time. Bo Nix. This dude played 61 games in college, so he's not even really a rookie. He's like a fucking 15-year veteran who happens to be a rookie. I said this before, there's not one particular thing that really stands out about him, except he does have Sean Payton, and Sean Payton is going to try and make him into the next Drew Brees. He can run a little bit, he has a good arm, but he doesn't stand out in any one particular category. He's not an athletic freak, although some might say that he's a quote-unquote sneaky athlete. I think, considering how much experience he did have playing in college, if he struggles as a rookie, then it's probably going to be because he sucks. Because if you have that much experience playing in college at high-level college football, and you come in with Sean Payton and you still stink, then you're probably just not good. So a lot of pressure on him to perform early. Drake May. If you want a tall, white, strong-arm quarterback, this is the guy for you. There are rumors that he might not win the starting job for the Patriots because, of course, he needs to sit behind Jacoby Brissett for 3 or 4 games. Otherwise, he'll be ruined forever. It makes no fucking sense to me when people do this. Anyway, he's looked good so far in the preseason, but be wary of those North Carolina quarterbacks. Obviously, Mitch Trubisky in 2017, his career did not go the way people thought it would. And more recently, Sam Howell, who led the league in interceptions last year and is now a backup. But I think Drake May will actually be good. And in fact, I think he might have the potential to be the best New England Patriots quarterback of all time. And I don't say that lightly, because they've had such great players like Steve Grogan and Drew Bledsoe at that position. And finally, the last rookie, Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner, had all the All-American win. He won every award possible last year at LSU. And much like Bo Nix, he had been playing forever. He played 5 years in college. So I expect him to be pretty good right out of the bat. I think that he has some tools to throw to. I expect him to do well. But again, I say this all the time. I say there's just something about Washington that they just have terrible luck. That franchise is kind of cursed. Even though they've gotten rid of Dan Snyder, it seems like they just can't do anything right since 1991. As an Eagles fan, I don't mind that. And I do think Jayden Daniels he does have the tools and the ability to be very, very good in the NFL. But I just feel like there's something that always prevents Washington from reaching its potential. Tier 6, too soon to tell. Anthony Richardson. Really, the whole story with Anthony Richardson is the exact same that it was last last year. The physical tools are obviously there. That's why he was drafted as high as he was, despite mediocre numbers. In the couple games he played last year, he showed that he could be a dynamic runner. He had some flashes as a passer, but until we were able to get a full season out of him, we really won't get a complete idea of who he is as a quarterback. You know, the potential is still there, the potential is still sky high, but the floor is also still very low. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Will Levis. So easy to make a sex tape joke about Will Levis because that's what happened this offseason with him and his super hot girlfriend. But overall, I would say that he had some good moments, like his first start last year. He came out on fire, threw a couple deep bombs to DeAndre Hopkins, and it looked like, oh, maybe Tennessee found something. Again, he's in the same category as Richardson, where the physical tools are there. The physical tools are why he was drafted as high as he was, despite some relatively mediocre production in college. The ceiling is very high, floor is very low, and we just have to wait and see how it turns out. I think the first couple games of this season, if he comes out and he stinks up the joint, I think that the Titans may say, all right, well, this guy is not our guy, and we have to look for another franchise quarterback in the draft moving forward. Tier 5, scrubs, Bryce Young. I know that some people are going to be saying, oh, it's too soon to put Bryce Young into the scrub category. He's only played 1 year and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I know what my eyes saw. This guy is fucking terrible, and I've been saying it since he stepped into the league out of Alabama. I have no idea how this guy went first overall. He doesn't have any really elite physical attributes. He's short. He holds on to the ball way too long because he can't see over his offensive lineman because he's about 4'5". He fumbles a lot. He doesn't throw touchdowns. He throws interceptions a decent amount. He's just not a good quarterback, and it's not like he's going to grow 4 or 5 inches out of nowhere or develop a rocket arm out of nowhere. He's maxed out physically. So I have no idea how this guy went first overall, and the Panthers would be smart to move on from him as quickly as possible. Deshaun Watson. I can't believe that, all off-field stuff aside, Deshaun Watson actually belongs in the scrubs category. Now, I tried my best to not allow the off-field stuff to sneak in, but really, I don't even need the fact that this dude is a certified weirdo at best to know that he hasn't had a good season since 2020, and he hasn't had a good winning season since 2019. He's got suspended all of 2021, and then over the last 2 years, he's played just 6 games each season and been absolutely terrible each year. The Browns went on a playoff run without him, and the worst part for the Browns is that they gave him such a massive contract that even if he continues to stink up the joint, they're going to have to be forced to play him because they're not going to want to cut him with all the dead money, and no other team is going to want to have a shitty quarterback with as much baggage as Deshaun Watson. So he's here in the scrub section. Russell Wilson. Now, this is one where I really thought about it because I do think that maybe I'm using Wilson's success against him because last year he had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and that's not scrub type stats. It's actually not bad at all, but he is just so far removed from his prime in Seattle where he was one of the best players in the league. But to me, his career kind of reminds me a little bit of Donovan McNabb, where he was really good in Philly. Russell Wilson was better than McNabb, but McNabb had a lot of great years in Philly, and then he went to Washington, which was like Wilson going to Denver, and he stunk it up there. And then McNabb had his third and final team, which was Minnesota, and he washed out there. And I think that's what we're going to see with Pittsburgh and Russell Wilson, where quarterbacks just go to die. I think this is going to be his last hurrah. So I guess I'm kind of projecting that he's going to be terrible, even though he hasn't been that great over the last couple years anyway. I think that this is going to be the year where the bottom really falls out, and we have to wonder what the hell happened to a guy who, as recently as 3 years ago, was considered one of the best players in the league. Daniel Jones. I feel like this is a broken record. I've been saying the same shit about Daniel Jones for the last 4 or 5 years. He's terrible. He had that one aberration year in 2022 where teams didn't try to stop him as a runner because he's a goofy looking white guy, and that caught teams off guard for a little bit, and then finally defenses caught up to it. Last year, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1-5 record. Obviously, he's famous for all of his fumbles. The guy's just not a good quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. I don't know what else to say. As an Eagles fan, I hope that the Giants keep playing him because it means an extra 2 free wins every year for us, but the guy just sucks. I've been saying this for about 4 or 5 years. You know, he's not good. So I hope that the Giants keep playing him. There's really not much more to say. Giants fans, be prepared for a lot of Drew Lock. Sam Darnold. Now, poor little Sam here was not going to be in this video. Originally, it was going to be J.J. McCarthy in place for the Vikings, but J.J. McCarthy is now out for the season, so Sam Darnold is in his place. Did you know that Sam Darnold is still younger than Joe Burrow? Wow, that's crazy, because Darnold is now on his 4th team after being selected 3rd overall in 2018, and there's a reason for that because he's not very good, and he's one of the biggest draft busts in Jets history. He had a few brief shining moments with Carolina before reverting back to the norm, and he spent last year in San Francisco backing Brock Purdy. We all know how this is going to go. He's probably going to get 5 or 6 games as a starter, and then the Vikings are going to go with their backup quarterbacks or move on. That's just how it, I don't see a Geno Smith situation happening here. Although I will say, if there's ever any position or any situation where Sam Darnold could resurrect his career, it would be with the Vikings, with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, but he sucks, so I don't see that happen. Tier 4, average, Derek Carr. Do not be fooled by his statistics, ladies and gentlemen. Derek Carr is the definition of an average quarterback. A quarterback who's good enough to win just enough games to keep his job, but not good enough to win you anything important. There's a reason why this guy has been a starter for 10 seasons in the NFL and only made the playoffs twice. And to be fair, I am going to count 2016 when he got injured before the playoffs. I've been saying the same thing for years and it hasn't changed. He is a tease. He will have moments of greatness that leave you thinking, wow, why is this guy not better? Why is this guy not won anything? Followed by long stretches of him just taking sacks and throwing checkdowns and missing reads and just generally losing games he should win. That's who Derek Carr is. Kyler Murray. The jury is still out on Murray. That rhymed, get it? I should be a rapper or something. That'd be awesome. Anyway, I've talked many times about how I feel about Kyler Murray. He's better than anything else Arizona has to trot out, but he is still not anywhere near as good as the mega contract he signed or for being the 1st overall pick that he was back in 2019. He has a losing career record. He's made the playoffs 1 time. He's been injury prone and he is small in stature, although he does, unlike Bryce Young, have a strong arm and some athletic ability, so you can see why he was drafted 1st overall, but still he hasn't put together a season, and again, we're going into year 6 now where he's looked like he's been worthy of the 1st overall pick. But hey, maybe him and Marvin Harrison Jr. will have a rapport and they'll end up becoming the next Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, without all the murdering, allegedly. Trevor Lawrence. Again, Trevor Lawrence is a guy much hyped. He was much more hyped than Kyler Murray was, even though both of them were 1st overall picks. Again, I say this every time I talk about Trevor Lawrence. He's been hyped up since he was in high school. He goes to Clemson 2018, wins a national championship, really sleepwalked his way to a national championship. They didn't really need him in that game versus Alabama, but they won it, and then spent the next 2 years in college hearing about how this guy was a generational pick and you tank your season for this guy and blah, 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 blah. He gets into the league. Urban Meyer's his coach's rookie year. He gets a pass on a terrible rookie year, and then he seemingly figured it out midway through his 2nd season, got the Jaguars to the playoffs. You guys all know the deal by now. They had that comeback, which was largely due to him throwing 4 interceptions, but anyway, it seemed like he was on the right track, and then last year he faltered, and he still hasn't had a breakout season or a season that you would expect him to have based on him being the 1st overall pick and how generationally hyped up he was coming out of both high school and college. Will that ever happen? I don't know. I feel like in today's game, if you don't show out as a quarterback within your first 1 or 2 seasons with all the rules slanted towards you and everything slanted your way to make you look good and you still are mediocre, it's kind of who you are. Again, CJ Stroud in 1 season has already shown more than Lawrence has in 3 seasons. So Lawrence, at this point, he can move back up to being above average or more if he has a great season this year, but right now, he's in the average section. Gardner Minshew. If diminishing returns was a human being, it would be Gardner Minshew. And by that, I mean the longer that he is starting for your team at quarterback, the worse off your team is going to be. He can be great for a team in maybe a 2 or 3 game pinch, you know what I'm talking about, as a backup or a spot starter, but if this guy is starting 10 plus games for you like he was last year with Indy once Anthony Richardson got hurt, then you're not going to be in a good position. But he's not terrible, but he's not great either. He was able to beat out Aiden O'Connell, which really says a lot more about the future of the Raiders than it does about Minshew, because if Aiden O'Connell can't beat out Gardner Minshew, and he's supposed to be the quarterback of the future on that roster right now, then the Raiders are going to be dog shit for a long time. But anyway, Minshew, he's a guy that he can have some really good games, but the longer he's your starter, the more trouble you're in. So he gets here in the average section. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is all over the place. There are some seasons going into the seasons where it seems like he's easily an above average quarterback. There are other years where he's like, oh, well, he sucks and he stinks. And then, of course, this year, he comes into the season off of a 4,000-yard season where he was really good with Tampa Bay, and everybody was kind of counting him out going into last year because he had been on 2 teams in 2022 and he'd been traded, 3 times or whatever it was. But this is a guy, he seems to, whenever there are no expectations for him going into a season, he seems to do really well. But when there there are expectations for him going into a season like there are now, he doesn't seem to perform at a high level. And I say this as somebody, I enjoy Baker, but I'm going to put him in the average section because I just feel like I can't really trust him or rely on him to be anything other than inconsistent. You just never know which Baker you're going to get. Geno Smith. This was a tough one. I almost wanted to put Geno Smith in the above average tier, but I went with average just because his history, his track record obviously isn't great. He's had really 1.5 good years. He had the 30 touchdown season out of nowhere in 2022, and then last year he regressed a little bit. I'll just put it this way. I don't think, even though relatively Geno has resurrected his career from all-time draft bust to respectable quarterback, I still think that in the big picture, he's an average quarterback. He's not a quarterback that you fear playing against. I don't fear playing against the Seattle Seahawks. I don't fear Geno Smith. He's a good quarterback. He can make some incredible throws. His highlights are amazing. But, I think that it's not a coincidence that the Seahawks have been 500 each of his 2 years as a starter. So he lands here. Tier 3, above average. This is the biggest tier in the video, and unlike what women might tell you, size does matter. Starting with Kirk Cousins. We already know the whole deal with Kirk Cousins. I really don't even have to spend a lot of time on him. He's now with the Falcons after tearing his Achilles last year with the Vikings. We all know that he always puts up great numbers. The big bugaboo with Cousins is that he doesn't win anything, and despite his great numbers, his teams always seem to finish around 500. He's basically the anti-Tom Brady in terms of luck, but he is a good quarterback. I don't expect him to see his style of play get changed at all because, again, he's mostly a pocket passer, so his Achilles injury is just something that, hey, it happened, but I don't think it's going to change his style of play. So I expect him to be the same guy. He's probably going to throw for 4,500 yards and 30-plus touchdowns and 10 or so interceptions, and the Falcons will end up being 8-9 or 7-10, something like that. Maybe they'll win the division because the NFC South is so terrible. Joe Burrow. Now, I know this one's going to be controversial because Joe Burrow has a reputation as an elite quarterback, largely thanks to the 2021 and 2022 seasons when he went to the Super Bowl and he had the AFC Championship game and he put up some big numbers there. But his career, you can look at it 50-50. Half his seasons have ended early with injury and half of his seasons have been great. I think that when he's healthy, he's obviously an above average quarterback. I don't know if he's elite though. I think you could say, he's certainly a top 10 quarterback, but I do feel like he got a pass for a really bad start last season. He started to pick it up a little bit and then he got hurt, and then Jake Browning came in and actually played pretty decently for somebody who everyone expected was going to suck. I still think Burrow's overrated. I still think he's gotten a lot of run from that 2021 postseason where he was kind of right place, right time for a lot of those wins, and he hasn't really done a lot, or not nearly as much as people make it out to be. But again, I think as long as he stays healthy this year, he should be back to throwing for 4,000 plus yards and 30 touchdowns. But that's the question. Can he stay healthy? He's been injured half the seasons that he's been in the league. And it seems like he's more focused on his hair and wearing sunglasses and mink coats and all that shit than he is at playing quarterback. Brock Purdy. Now, if you were looking literally just at raw stats, Brock Purdy, based on what he's done so far in his career statistically, would be the GOAT because he has unbelievable passer rating, all the advanced stats, all that shit. He has the best ever. His playoff numbers are also very good as well, and he didn't have a great performance in the Super Bowl per se, but he gave the 49ers the lead 3 different times in the fourth quarter and overtime of the Super Bowl, and his defense couldn't hold on to it any of the 3 times. So he did enough to win the Super Bowl. However, and I say this every time I talk about Brock Purdy, he certainly benefits from Kyle Shanahan's system. At the same time, I also think on his own that he is an above average quarterback. I don't think that there's any way that a quarterback can put up the numbers that he does while also being terrible. Like, you can make a bad quarterback look decent, but you can't make a bad quarterback into a great quarterback statistically. I truly believe that, especially over the course of several seasons. So I think Brock Purdy belongs in the above average category, and I almost put him in the elite category, but I do think I want to see another season out of him where see if he can put up some big numbers. I have no reason to expect why he can't, because again, the roster is loaded and he has a great coach, Kyle Shanahan, offensively, so I expect him to put up big numbers again. But I don't agree with the Brock Purdy detractors that he's just a scrub that's being held up by Kyle Shanahan. This isn't a Jimmy G situation. This isn't a Nick Mullins situation. This guy is legit. Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, the book on Dak Prescott is the same as it's always been. He's a guy who's going to juice his numbers in low leverage moments against bad teams. He's going to put up really good regular season numbers, but he's a guy in big games and big moments in the postseason that you can't trust him. He just shrivels into his little shell, and it's very similar to Romo, where they're great statistically in the regular season and they pump pump up their numbers against bad teams, or they have all their best moments in the clutch or in the regular season, but come playoff time, for whatever reason, they're just not the same guy, and that's why you can't trust them, and that's why, even though they're good quarterbacks, objectively, they really can't be considered truly elite or Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks because they don't come through when it matters most in the postseason, and that's what Dak Prescott is. So as long as Dallas has Dak Prescott as their starting quarterback, I will not be afraid of Dallas winning a Super Bowl. Jared Goff, what a wild career it's been thus far for Jay Goff. Historically bad rookie season, then he had a couple very good seasons under Sean McVay. Took the Rams to a Super Bowl where he scored only 3 points, but people said, okay, well, he's a Pro Bowler now. And then they said, well, maybe after he struggled for a couple more seasons in LA, you know what, maybe Sean McVay's the reason for his success. So he goes to Detroit and he has a bad first year in Detroit, and everybody says, see, we knew he was all a product of McVay, blah, blah, blah. And then out of nowhere, the last 2 years, he suddenly becomes one of the most productive quarterbacks in the league, and you all know gets the Lions back to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991. And he now is a name that kind of deserves respect around the league. And so he's a guy that I think you can pencil him in now for 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and now the Lions won last year, but, now they have expectations. But this is a guy, again, who he came one game within leading 2 different teams to a Super Bowl, which not many quarterbacks have ever done. So I do think, and I was one of the guys for a while that thought, Jared Goff, who cares? But he's a guy that, he seems to have found a groove, and he was the first overall pick back in 2016 because of his ability to throw the ball. So there is talent there, and he does have talent around him in Detroit. I don't know, will it be an NFC Championship game appearance again? I don't know, but I do think that Detroit, for the first time in a long time, I think they're going to put together a string of very respectable seasons because Jared Goff is at the helm. Jordan Love. Turning to Goff's NFC North rival, Jordan Love was a guy who, obviously, we all know by now, sat his first 3 years, just like Aaron Rodgers. So, oh my God, the Packers, they found another Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love's going to go on to become a Hall of Fame quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Still too early for any of that shit. Last year was a tale of 2 seasons for Love. He started out pretty mediocre, especially disappointing for a guy who was entering his 4th year, and then he really, really turned it on in the second half of the season and had that great playoff game versus Dallas. But then against the 49ers, he was so-so, and he threw the game season-ending interception, which is very Favrean. But again, a guy throws over 30 touchdowns like he did. That shows, I think, that he is for real. But time will tell whether or not the second half of the season, Jordan Love, when he had like 18 touchdowns to 1 interception, or the first half of last season when he had nearly as many interceptions as touchdowns. I think it'll balance out a little bit. I don't think every season will be to those extremes, but it's interesting to see which Jordan Love are we going to see moving forward. I see no reason to believe, with more experience and with more rapport with his receiving group, that he won't continue to put up good numbers. So he is here in the above average category. CJ Stroud. I don't think it's too soon to put CJ Stroud in the above average category despite having just 1 season, because that 1 season, his rookie season, was really fucking good. 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, helped turn around a Houston team that nobody thought was going to do anything. Simply put, he had one of the greatest rookie seasons ever for a quarterback, won a playoff game, and just watching him play, he is legit. You just watch him. It's just one of those things, you watch him play, you look at the numbers, he really just has everything. And again, I admit this, I say this every time I talk about CJ Stroud, I certainly did not expect him to be the player that he was. I thought he was going to be another Ohio State bust quarterback, but he proved a lot of people wrong, including me. And I have to eat shit for that and own up to that. However, it is just 1 season, so I can't really put him any higher than above average, but I see no reason other than health as to why, as long as he stays healthy moving forward, why he can't continue to ascend up the ranks and become an elite quarterback if he isn't there already. Justin Herbert. On the flip side, this is why tiers are important, because CJ Stroud being above average is an amazing thing going into just your 2nd season, whereas a guy like Justin Herbert being considered above average going into what's going to be his 5th season can be seen maybe as a little disappointing, considering how amazing he was his first couple years and how the last couple years have been a little bit inconsistent and a little bit underwhelming. It just seems like with Herbert that there's that historically dominant season lurking within him, a season where he goes off for 45 touchdowns and 5 interceptions and 5,000 yards. It seems like he has that within him, because when he's on his A game, it's unbelievable to watch, but for some reason it just has not happened. Whether it's coaching, whether it's teammates, I don't know. But Jim Harbaugh's there, and Jim Harbaugh, who has more career rushing yards than Bo Jackson, by the way, is a weirdo and a cheater, allegedly, but he's also shown that he can get the most out of his quarterbacks, and so maybe he will finally get the most out of Justin Herbert, because it just feels like there's another level that we've been waiting for Herbert to get to that he hasn't gotten to yet, because all the physical talent is there. But until he actually shows it, then he's going to be in the above average tier and not the elite tier, in my opinion. Matthew Stafford. His real first name is actually John. John Stafford is his real first name, but he likes to be deceptive and sneaky. He's a sneaky athlete, sneaky deceptive athlete, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know. I'm just rambling right now. Either way, we look at Stafford. You know the book on him by now. He's been in the league for 15 years. This is going to be his 16th season, his 4th in LA. I still can't believe he's won a Super Bowl. That's actually like incredible to me that he's won a Super Bowl and literally done nothing in the playoffs the other 14 years of his career. But we all know the thing, much like with Herbert, not dissimilar to Herbert, he's always been an incredible arm talent. He's always kind of been a guy that you say, there seems to be more there. He seems to be better than his stats might indicate, or he should be better than his stats say he is, because his A game is incredible, and the no-look passes and the arm strength and the highlight reel throws are all there, and they're jaw-dropping. So you're wondering, what's the problem here? Why isn't this guy the best quarterback in the league? And now he's going to be 36 this season, and he had a pretty good season last year, but he really has just been, for most of his career, he's been just a very, very above average quarterback who occasionally can lean into the elite category and then he'll fall back out of it. So I don't think he's old enough yet to where he can't put up another dominant season, but I do believe that I think we're going to be in line for another typical Stafford season, which is 4,000 plus yards, 25 touchdowns, and 10 or so interceptions. Tua Tagovailoa, basically the Brock Purdy of the South, a guy who puts up great numbers, raw numbers, but doesn't get any credit because of his head coach and because of the talent around him. I've said it before, Tua Tagovailoa is a physically limited quarterback in an offense with a bunch of physically gifted skill position players. And so because of that, and because of the lack of playoff success and his noodle arm, I really don't think Tua is going to get any respect from anybody until he goes to another team and wins. Like, he's going to have to do the Jared Goff route, where he goes to another team and he wins, or he takes a team on a deep playoff run while putting up great stats for people to finally say, you know what, yeah, Tua is actually really good. Because as long as he's in Miami and as long as he does well, the credit's always going to go to Mike McDaniel, it's going to go to Tyreek Hill, and it's going to go to Jalen Waddle. And whenever the Dolphins fail, it's always going to be because Tua actually sucks and his weaknesses are being covered up by the scheme, which isn't completely untrue, but he's another guy that I think I don't think he's bad. I think that the raw numbers say that he's an elite quarterback, but I think he's really an above average quarterback with elite numbers because of the scheme that he plays in. Jalen Hurts. As an Eagles fan, everything was going great last year, at least for the record wise. We were 10-1. Hurts was in the MVP conversation, fresh off of a Super Bowl appearance, which the Eagles should have won, and they wasted the best game of Hurts' career, where he was truly magnificent. And then the bottom just fell out. I still don't know what happened the last 5 or so weeks of the season that caused the Eagles to go from being 10-1 to not even winning their division, and then having a lifeless playoff performance versus the Bucs where they got blown out. Did that sour my perception of Jalen Hurts a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. I still think he's a very good quarterback. I still think that it's hilarious how mad people get about the tush push, because other quarterbacks and other teams, we see them try it all the time and they get stuffed and they fail at it. So I would much rather root for a team with a quarterback where people complain about him scoring touchdowns or how he scores touchdowns than root for a team with a quarterback who can't score touchdowns at all. But either way, I do think Jalen needs to bounce back and show that he can bounce back from the bad end to last season. And the biggest thing he has to improve on is not leaving the pocket early when he has a clean pocket. Jason Kelce's gone. Who knows how that might impact the season? But I think as long as Hurts is healthy, he's going to be a guy who should throw you for about 25 touchdowns and he should get you about 40 touchdowns total, But I think if the Eagles can have a better defense this year, then I think that they should win 10 plus games easily again. Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, this is kind of a respect position here, because I wanted to put him in the average category, but I said, you know what? Because of his track record, one of the best quarterbacks ever, 4 MVPs, future Hall of Famer, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here and put him in the above average category, even though he hasn't had a good season or thrown for 300 yards in a game since 2021. We all know last year was supposed to be the revival, and then 4 snaps into the season, he blows his Achilles, and that was it. And I think that's kind of caused a lot of people to maybe overlook the Jets a little bit, because it's like, oh, well, it's just the Jets, blah, blah, blah. But I think that with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, with that Jets defense, I think that the Jets are going to be legit. I think that it's just been delayed by 1 year. So I think that Aaron Rodgers, he still has the capability. If you look at the clips, you watch him play, he still has all the arm talent in the world. Will he be more reduced to becoming more of a pure pocket passer because of the Achilles injury? I don't know. But I still think when he's healthy, I still think he, with supporting cast that he has with the Jets, I think he's going to be an above average quarterback, and I think the Jets are going to be very dangerous. No offense to 9/11. Tier 2, elite, Lamar Jackson. I don't think there's any quarterback in the league currently that is more divisive than Lamar Jackson. There are certain people who still think that he sucks as a passer, and then there are other people who are willing to die on the hill that he is just as good or almost as good as Patrick Mahomes and the best quarterback in the league. For me, I feel like if you look at what he's able to do, I think that he's a good passer and he's the best running quarterback of all time. But the thing is that the Baltimore Ravens, when he is their quarterback, he produces and they win at a historic rate in the regular season. The Ravens go as far as he goes, and that's also the reason why they haven't reached a Super Bowl with Lamar, because for as dominant as they've been in the regular season with him under center, as we also know, he has been somewhat lackluster in the postseason. Well, not somewhat, he's been lackluster in the postseason, and he blew a golden opportunity last year with the AFC Championship game at home versus the Chiefs to get to his first Super Bowl, and it didn't happen. But overall, I think he's the greatest running quarterback the game has ever seen. He's a better passer than some people give him credit for, but he can never be considered the best quarterback in the league despite the MVPs he's won until he has some great playoff runs, because until then, he's always going to be known as a playoff joke. And unfortunately, it's a legitimate label. Josh Allen. Unlike Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen has some of the best postseason numbers ever. Just like Lamar Jackson, he has no Super Bowl rings and 0 Super Bowl appearances. Now, a lot of people may call this the Mahomes effect, which is not incorrect, but Allen is basically what the 2017 Cavaliers were to the 2017 Warriors, with Mahomes being the 2017 Warriors. In pretty much any other era, Allen would be the best quarterback in the league, a guy that gives you 40, 45 touchdowns passing and rushing every year. He gives you turnovers too, and that's been his biggest bugaboo. But he's such a dynamic player as a passer and a runner. He has every trait physically that you could ask for. And he's also shown to be a very good playoff quarterback. If Mahomes didn't exist, he probably would already have a ring or two on his resume. But he has so far been rendered to being a bridesmaid in his career, even though his physical tools say that he could be the best quarterback in the league. For my money, he is the second best quarterback in the league, and you can probably guess who I have at number 1. And tier number 1, GOAT, Patrick Mahomes. We all know this. Everybody knows this. This isn't a surprise. Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. He's the best quarterback of all time, even though he might not have the volume or the longevity of some other quarterbacks in terms of in a vacuum. Nobody brings more to the table than he does. He's won back-to-back Super Bowls, back-to-back Super Bowl MVPs. He has 3 rings, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 MVPs, a couple 5,000-yard passing seasons. He hasn't even turned 29 years old yet. He is the NFL's main character, and it's going to be that way for the next 10 to 12 years. The only question is, how many rings and MVPs will he finish his career with? Here's just a quick overall summary of tiers and the quarterbacks. Really puts it all and neatly sums it up for anybody who might be confused by the video you just watched. If you want to screenshot this and look back at it or post it on social media, you can do whatever the hell you want because it's a free country.